What was that predominantly?
I don't know, David, do you have an idea on that? No?
I don't know exactly what falls into that upkeep charge.
That's a significant increase, that's why I was just sort of curious.
Well, isn't the upkeep
It's only $3,000.
Oh, that's right, okay,
Yeah.
I apologize, I was looking at year-to-date.
Yeah.
So we still have, okay.
Now, keep in mind that between December, we're gonna do the increase in the water and sewer to 1%, and then also the base rates. Okay.
Now, sewer upkeep, is that when you have to go in and repair a line, does that fall under that?
No, this is revenue, this is your base.
Oh, I'm sorry,
These are base rates, and this is your usage rates.
I'm gonna stop now, I'm completely backwards.
So this is the sewer. We're anticipating just under $5,461,700 is revenue for 2018. Salaries and benefits are the same, so going down to expenditures, David, I'm going to turn it over to you. Starting with probably recruitment.
Well, that's just a standard number that we typically leave in across most of our funds because of the expense that goes along with having to find new employees if we don't have somebody stick with us through the entire year. So that number is pretty standard. The discharge permits, we haven't received any information that those are increasing at this point, so we're anticipating those to hold. Just basics down through there. We pretty much held the line. I'm trying to remember what we went up on. It was a while ago that we worked on this, but
So throughout, most of the numbers have stayed the same. The total admin fees is that Dave to my left here calculates based upon the budget and the formula. So we bill back the cemetery, the library, the water and sewer funds for our admin fees. It depends on what our total budget is. Engineering services, David?
I was going to say, I think we increased that in the hope that we can do the lagoon screen, and so we would have additional engineering costs. I mean, we've already had the design done, but some oversight costs and that review of specs and the materials and that kind of thing. So we upped that, hoping that as we get into
Yes,
unplugged.
No, I'm good.
Let's go home.
Sabotage motion?
I was tired of reading. I still have a screen, but you don't.
Troy, I have a question for Kurt. These credit card charges.
Thank you. Much better.
Why are we paying interest on a credit card, anybody, for any reason? I see that appears in a few other departments.
Those are I believe that those are the fees that we pay for having the credit card processed.
That easier to see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
When you purchase something?
No, it's my understanding, and I may be completely off base, is that the credit card fees, what line?
Accepting payment?
Right, you just went past it, right?
Mhm.
Down just a little bit.
Right
You just went past it going up. Right there, third line down, fifth line down.
Correct. So those are going to be fees that are paid to the credit card so that the town can accept credit card payments.
Correct.
Okay. And that's split amongst 2 or 3 funds.
I say split in sewer, water, and I don't remember which other ones have that.
That's the best answer you could have given me.
At the level we're at, we're probably at what, 1.75% commission?
I don't know that, I just ended up seeing what they charge. I think that'd be something like $1,000 a month or something.
So this number probably should actually go up within the last 2 years.
Yeah, looks like it should.
And if your sewer fees go up, those would probably go up with it.
So at least double that.
More enough.
Yeah, 'cause last year they did.
I'm gonna say we're projected to be 6,000 already this year.
So I just went and doubled that, 36,000.
That much, huh?
Now, is it real convenient for us to allow them to use their credit or debit card?
Quite a few people do, I believe.
Because I know a lot of places, especially governments and whatnot, like you go into renew your license plate, you want to use your credit card, they charge you that fee.
Didn't we do that? I thought we instituted that.
No, that was.
We only
for the-
charge 50 cents per transaction. We don't charge the customer the full amount of the fee.
Okay.
And that's for the water bill, wasn't it for the water bill, right?
For anything,
Oh, for
anything that's
anything.
run through a credit card.
Oh,
If they do it, online or over the phone, if they come in, we deduct that 50 cents as well. And I don't know why.
If you're a person,
Yeah.
the card.
You don't get that 50-cent fee if you do it.
Yeah, swipe fee.
So going down past engineering, David, looks like you just maintained the line across the board from last year to this year.
I'm gonna say, I think that's the instructions the town manager gave us.
Under severe coercion.
Pretty much. Well, a couple years ago, these two enterprise funds weren't doing so well, so we cut quite a bit, and we just focused on basic operations. One increase was a SCADA upgrade, David.
And you'll see this in both the sewer and the water fund, and part of what that increase is our computer is almost 5 years old back there. We did, the software that we are running on that 4.5-year-old computer is no longer supported, so we are not able to actually update the computer with the latest antivirus and that kind of thing, because it screws up our software and it won't call me anymore and tell me when there's a problem. So we just aren't doing anything with it right now. It is behind a couple of different firewalls, and it does not get used for internet searches and anything. The only time it goes to the internet is to send an email that there is an alarm. So most of our IT people are pretty comfortable that we're okay in that situation right now, but that's why you see an increase both here and in the water fund, so that after January 1, we could update the computer, and more than that, it's update the software so that we're running the most current version. And there'll be, I think it was between $4,000 and $5,000 for the software and the licenses, and then to have the tech come in and update everything and make it all talk to the way it was before, so that I understand what's going on with it, so.
All the hardware that's on the equipment is okay? It doesn't need to be changed?
You know, at this...
Correspond with that?
No, you mean as far as the radios on the SCADA system and that kind of thing? And yes, right now, those are all at a point that we're okay with that. This will all interface with that, is my understanding.
Okay.
So yes, this is basically software and a new computer on this end of things that should interface with all of that out there, so.
Are you doing any relining or slip? Slip lining?
Well, the slip lining, where did we go? You just went past it, I think, Troy. Now, was that it right there? Basically, we held the line. I was hoping to add some additional to that this year, because we didn't have them come in and do any this year, because it was such the 30,000, in the past 2 years, we've done between 50 and 90,000 worth. And so I was hoping to increase, and I don't remember why we went ahead and held the line. I think there was some other numbers that didn't come in quite the way we wanted when I doubled that to 60. We were hoping to only pay the mob-in fee once and basically get 2 small projects put together into one bigger project for next year. So, Troy, I'm not sure what our bottom line is, whether we can afford to add any more to that one or not.
When we talked about this, Dave and I talked about this, it's been a while early on in the process. So let me go to the bottom number here. as you can see, the projection is, David is looking with his budget of being under almost 200,000 on what we anticipate spending. So that's pretty good. Right now, we're looking at adding another 58,000 if revenue expenditures come in to where your total cash, and that includes Colorado Trust and some restricted funds, but we're back over $1 million. So as far as cash is concerned, it has the last 2 years been building back up because we have not done any big projects. So you do have some funds, if you look at these numbers, that you could increase that slip line a little bit if you wanted to.
How many aerators do you have in reserve?
I've got 2 splasher motors sitting on the side right now, and we've got one of the red ones that needs new bearings. We just replaced bearings at one of the other red ones, and now we've got another one that's giving us fits on that. So, you know, we've got Troy, if you scroll up, I don't remember, I want to say our number was $5,000. I'm pretty comfortable with that right now because we did spend some money this year purchasing some additional aerators and getting some work done, so I think we'll be okay.
Do you have a complete one to where if you have a loss, you can replace it while you're
Of the
getting...
red ones?
The
No.
Siemens.
Yes, I've got a couple extra floats, and then I've got all the pieces, parts we could put together another one if we had to.
Okay.
Basically, what we do is we pull the motor and the shaft, drop a new motor and shaft onto it, put the impellers and everything back on it, and send it back out.
Okay.
So
You know, that was always a problem we had in the past.
They take so long to get, and if
Yes.
you remember when I came to the board earlier, I think we ordered 3 or 4 earlier this year, and we've got 2 sitting in the crate right now at the old shop, ready to go if we need them.
2 is probably adequate, right?
For now,
Good.
until we lose 3.
So the slip lining, is there areas of concern that you have?
Anything that's clay. So most of the town, yeah, most of the older portions of town. And the only reason I say that is because everything in Platteville was laid so extremely flat. They did not lay it, a standard operating procedure is to put it in at least a 0.04%. The town lays at a 0.02%, and they laid with the grade of the ground. They didn't, and part of the reason they did that is they didn't want the sewers way deep, and they didn't want manholes, and they didn't want to have to do a bunch of lift stations. So I understand why they did what they did, but with the clay lines, with the slow flow, with more low flow toilets and that kind of thing being put in, we're not getting the volume of water down through those. So we get a buildup, we actually end up with your solids dropping out because the flow is so slow. It's actually a grit, what they call a grit chamber speed, which is to allow all the grit to settle. So that's why we invest money in cleaning those lines every year. So the slip lining actually gives us a smoother surface. It doesn't hang things up as much. It actually creates a new structure inside the pipe where if we've got cracks or other things like that. So I highly recommend it, but like I said, what I did was we did not do the small $30,000 project, which is basically one block section, hoping that we could have enough to do 2 or maybe 3 blocks next year if we had the money, and we would only pay 1 mob-in fee versus a mob-in fee for a small project, and then bring them back again next year and pay them another mob-in fee to do the other small project. So,
What's that fee about?
you know, I want to say that that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to have them bring all their equipment into town and start setting up. And it does go up as the project gets bigger, Tim, but it goes up in a much smaller increment than if they are just coming, you know, bringing everything into town and doing this piece versus bringing it into town to do these 3 pieces or whatever the case may be. We are trying to answer your question, the areas of concern, we're trying to be systematic about how we do it, so that we've got a record of what's been done and where. Right now, I don't have any super high priority areas that I'm going, gosh, we've got to get in there and get this one done. But as soon as we send a camera down in that area and I discover, oh, wait a minute, we got some roots or we got some other issues that have come to light since the last time we were down there, it might become the high priority area, so.
David, what percentage from Grand Avenue to 66-foot Old Town have we slept on, do you think? So a couple years ago, we did a pretty big project, I thought we did.
We did Hope's Place.
We did four, we did, I wanna say we did four and a half blocks. Over the last, it wasn't this year, but over the last 2 years prior to that, we had done four, I didn't bring my sheet with me, Troy, so I'm not sure. Percentage-wise, there was some that was done in a different style of slip lining down Division. I found some records on that the other day when I was digging through something else. So part of Division has been done, and so I would say we're probably in the 25, maybe 30% mark of all of the clay in town has been done to this point.
So to understand, you forego this year, that 30,000, and put it on next year? So-
That's what I'd like to do, and if I'm not mistaken, of course, I'm still working on my accounting thought process here, but because if the money isn't expended here, it doesn't just disappear into some black hole of some sort, it's still in the fund. So if we don't spend that 30 this year, and we spend 60 next year, that would be this year's 30 and next year's 30, unless the board opts to increase that number even more because of where the fund is.
90 next year.
If we did 90 next year, I'll probably ask for 110, but yeah, it will.
Over 60, it ends up being 90.
Well, I would say that to me is an important
I think so too.
priority, because these lines in Old Town, there's.
Well, and we just encountered one.
Well, honestly, the $30,000, if we have a significant issue in somebody's basement, that money's gonna be spent in a real hurry.
So I doubled it from 30 to 60, so your potential end of year savings is still in the black, about 20,000.
And you're still looking at doing that typically early fall, which is what you seem to...
I will work with them and figure out, and yes, early fall has worked out, it seems to be when it ends up being. I actually was visiting with the owner of the company earlier today about a different project, something else he was giving me some information on, but ideally, if I know that we've got that going into next year and I can increase it a little bit, I may try to bring them in the spring and knock it out earlier than later. The good thing about this being 5 foot underground, very rarely does the weather affect it, with the exception of we can't have super cold temperatures for the liner. The liner can't be super cold when we're doing it. So it'll be late spring, early summer, or into early fall sometime.
Okay, so I doubled that to 60, so... Do we have anything else, David, on this one?
We're gonna talk about the capital stuff later, so no.
Unless there's any question on the sewer fund, the water fund, and the second enterprise fund. What cash, potential cash available beginning of the year is about $725,000. Again, I want to discuss those two numbers of water and sewer cash here in a little bit. What surprises me based upon percentage, now this percentage of 468 as a projected estimate, we know that will go down because we're going into fall for the first off the water. But I think we'll get close to 400 like we did in 2016. So I left that number the same. I could increase it because we're increasing fees, but if people don't like their increase, they'll stop water. So I just stay conservative and wait it. If I'm wrong, great. It'll offset what I was spent tonight earlier. Water consumption. Okay, your upkeep again, those are your base rates. And that's your water consumption.
How long, when we get an increase from the Conservancy District, how much notice do they give us before they do that?
David, when's the last time we got an increase?
When you say Conservancy, you mean from
Water
Central
charge.
Well Water,
Yeah.
who does our our
Our
potable
finished
water.
Yeah.
Well, they do, I don't remember when they send that notification as far as what they anticipate the fees to be. I wanna say we get it somewhere around this time of year, but I don't remember for sure when we get it, Steve.
I was just wondering if we get a 6-month notice or something.
And I don't remember if the
That would affect that
contract
number.
spells that out or not. It's been a long time since I've read that contract.
I think it's quarterly because we pay quarterly.
Okay.
Well,
When we do get an increase, is it significant, or has it been just something relatively modest in the past?
it hasn't been a budget buster, we haven't had to do
Okay.
a budget by any means.
Okay, and that was my question.
So with some minor items, you're looking at, well, this water feasibility study needs to be taken off because that's gonna be done. Did you see that? I didn't see that. I'm gonna delete that, that was a carryover by accident. I'm gonna delete that, that's a profit off. So about 750,000. Zero. Just hit zero. There we go. 760,000. Again, wages and benefits have not been touched. Again, with recruitment on down, David. Any
Well, we
changes?
basically pretty much held the line. I'm trying to remember what changes we did or didn't make, and at this point, just keep rolling through that, Troy, because I don't think we've got,
Where does longevity go?
Should be a line item for longevity in there.
It's up in benefits.
There you go, okay. So that's not anticipated to change much for 2018 at all?
A little, public works,
Yeah.
where are your employees at?
We should have some people making, having changes, shouldn't we?
At 3, 5, 7, and 10?
I was gonna say
How do you schedule?
Shane and Greg both hit the 5-year mark, so, well, they hit the 5-year mark last year, so they're at 6, so we shouldn't have any.
So that should be that should be
But,
steady?
but at this point, I haven't touched anything above any of these numbers at all. This is stuff that has just been plugged in, basically held over from last year for now, because there hasn't been any, direction from the board to do anything different with that, so.
Okay.
Well, when I was looking at longevity before, I didn't think anybody public works reached the next level, so we kept the numbers the same.
Okay.
I don't hit my 10-year mark till next year.
So that will change a little bit, because on your tenure, that's when you go to the next level. It's not January 1, we change it.
If it's 10-year, we're gonna have to find more money.
We'll have to float a bond.
Money.
Budget for next year, so.
So rolling down through there, I think we pretty much held the line. I'm sure there's something that I didn't, but I don't remember what it was right now off the top of my head. The line locator that we have, a new one, the one that we had, the motherboard in it failed, and it was more expensive to repair than it is to buy a new one. And the new one is somewhere between $2,800 and $3,200, so I put the $3,200 in there, anticipating needing to buy a new line locator.
Even though it says hydraulic jack.
No, right above it is, oh, it's off a line. I gave it to Troy, all handwritten, so I'll blame him on this one.
$3,200 for a hydraulic jackhammer. We'll buy you like some picks.
There you go, right line. And then right here.
Under the water storage tank, we had the inspections done last year, and we do have, some repairs that need to be done. And, that number is, I wanna say that the repairs were in the 7,700 range, something like that. But knowing how things tend to go, that's the reason I increased that number a little bit, to make sure that we had enough to get them done, so.
Probably prudent.
They weren't anything that had to be done right away. Of course, the contractor would have loved for us to have completed them right away, but I told him we were gonna wait and set the money aside for this year. So, there again, you see the funds for the SCADA upgrade. We split that both between the water and sewer because that's the only thing the SCADA system is monitoring at this time is the water and sewer systems. So that's why we did that in both of those.
So the upgrade is 12,000 total.
There again, the number is a little higher than I hope it's gonna be, but I'm trying to make sure that we've anticipated enough. Like Steve brought up, if I've got a radio in the field that needs to be updated to interface with the new program properly or something like that, I wanna make sure that I have added to that a little bit, so.
So right now, anticipated expenditures is slightly over revenues in the water fund. About a 714 total cash value.
On that expenditures, it does have depreciation calculated into that, so that's obviously a non-cash item. Depreciation is just, that $135,000 is basically just amortizing the cost of stuff you've already purchased. So that is baked into that, so it's not like you're running a cash loss based on that budget.
Okay.
It's an accounting loss, but it's not a cash loss.
Right. Okay. Now, as far as equipment's concerned, I was thinking primarily about the backhoe and other stuff. Those, if we ever do a replacement or repairs or anything else, is that equally funded by water and sewer departments when we do repairs or replacement on that machinery? Because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt, sorry. It depends on what piece of machinery. Right now, on a backhoe, I split those costs partially out of the cemetery, partially out of streets, partially out of sewer, partially out of water. So when it comes to the backhoe. When it comes to the road grader, we take it primarily out of streets. If we're doing, like we are right now, a lot of work up at the cemetery or whatever, I may pull a little bit out of the repair of equipment, out of the cemetery fund for something like that. But so, I mean, if we was just one of our trucks, if we're working on that or whatever, I may split that. We've got M&R vehicles in every fund that we have, and because the trucks get used at the parks, at the cemetery, in the water fund, or in the sewer, all over town streets, I may hand that to Devin and just say, even split them, every fund I've got, So if it's a $500 ticket, each fund sees a $100 hit, on something like that. So that's how, obviously the street sweeper and the grader pretty much come out of the streets, but the backhoe, I have no problem justifying out of multiple funds for something like that.
We're gonna talk about the capital projects in just a minute.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions on the sewer fund this time?
Water.
Water fund.
Sorry, water fund. Sewer and water funds, these are two enterprise funds. And like Dave was correct, when we sat down and talked, I asked them that's just to hold the line, because their goal is, unless there's a capital project that needs to be addressed, we're trying to build this fund back up without increasing fees substantially. And I think we're reaching our goals here compared to a few years ago.
Have we put a contingency in each one?
No. No. Contingency has been in there for multiple years.
But I don't see any reason to put a contingency in, because if something goes wrong, we're gonna have to take some money in from that.
Yeah. A lot of this, a big portion of this, I'm not sure you can hold this in Call of Trust, and you just call David up and is it a donation or a transfer?
Well, College Trust is really still in the fund, so,
Transfer.
you'd have to do a budget amendment,
Yep.
but you still have the cash within the fund to spend it, it's just basically you got it in the savings account.
They're both in separate funds, is that right? In the bank?
Water and sewer.
Are they the same?
Bank account?
Yeah, right.
No, they each have their own bank account. There's probably about 20 different College Trust bank accounts that holds all that stuff segregated differently. So each fund may even have multiple College Trust accounts, segregating it for specific purposes.
And then what kind of interest do we draw on that, having that much money in those accounts?
Minimal.
Is that added in there or no?
There's a little bit of interest that typically College Trust hasn't been paying great. You're getting a little bit better than they were, so there's some earnings built into here. You got $600.
That's $600. Now this year, why is this year so high?
I'm thinking that it must be starting to come back around on the interest, but there was a point when it was down about, within the last 2 years, where it would have been about that 600. They're starting to come back up.
Do we have to keep them separate, or can we combine them and then, that way we draw more interest on it?
They don't give you a better one on the rate, but it's still all in their bank. So they're still holding all that. I think they're holding something like, $2 million of the town's money within College Trust. They're just different bank accounts.
A lot of small communities like ours, do they use Colorado Trust, or do they use other banks?
Yeah, because you guys are required by statute to be very conservative on your investments. And so these are really just a money market fund that's very well looked at by the state. The state takes and actually kind of runs that fund as well.
Okay.
So it's very conservative, and there's either College Trust or C-State, but most places are in College Trust. And it's very well used around the state.
It's very liquid.
Very liquid, yeah. You can get it out in 24 hours through a wire transfer. And there's no fees to do the withdrawal either, so it's not like you have to liquidate stocks or something like that.
Must be going for your lifetime savings.
Thought we could get rich off it.
No, there's no other question on water and sewer fund. Mary, are you logged into you?
Yes,
Okay.
you need to switch over,
I need to switch over to mine.
sorry,
Nope, you're fine. And you log out.
don't lose my work.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
it doesn't,
It doesn't?
for some reason, you have to use.
Do it, she brought one up. They thought we'd be paid for it.
I don't know, I quit working today.
Control on the lead, but you get to a lot of that.
Maybe.
Exactly. Can't do that now.
You should be able to log on.
Are you guys sleeping out there?
Almost.
I really appreciate you coming.
Well, it's good information.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you all do.
We're here to keep you alive.
Tireless job.
Makes a lot of sense about this.
Yeah.
We try to see if we make the right decision. We try.
We're only human.
Just this one page?
We're right at the time, right?
Okay.
Guess the question is, are you all awake?
You drink a lot of
Oh, no, it must be a alarm clock.
And she's got a sly smile as she walks
Yeah,
out the
she
door.
Capital project is back at St. Nelson, members of the board 11 by 17.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I wasn't gonna focus the budget, I was just gonna focus on the big scale where we can talk directly. What I've done is break down capital projects by category, so it can help control, well, not control, but direct, control and direct the conversation. These projects have been discussed, but they've been on the shelf collecting dust. Yeah, we're gonna make some more. Great. During the last year, this is not a capital improvement plan, because the plan also involves plans and concepts. This passes down. I went over these with David. I'll let you come here and get back, see, maybe some more copies. So as you can see, I started with streets, went down through what I thought were the categories of sidewalks, public facilities, water, sewer, parks, cemetery, and equipment. Here's your backhoe loader. And I put down the list of projects that have been discussed in the last year or so, plus things that have been addressed to David and I, with the estimated cost of those projects. I'm working with David. I put some staff recommendations, fairly conservative staff recommendations. And then at the bottom, to keep it on one sheet, instead of looking throughout the entire budget, I just did a snapshot of what potential funding sources we have. Okay?
You need one.
You guys get it all hammered out while they're gone?
Well done.
I had the microphone.
So what I'd like to do is start with the easier ones first, because some of these have basically essentially been decided, so we'll leave streets to last. If you go to sidewalks, which is the second category, we've already budgeted in the sidewalk maintenance fund, the Grand Avenue sidewalk project, and that's gonna max out that fund, so that's the only project I've proposed for this year. That's already in budget, as indicated.
And that's gonna take the sidewalks from the mobile home.
It'll take it from where the sidewalk, hopefully where the sidewalk ends at River and Grand, past Valley Village, around the Curtis Circle, and connect to the sidewalk at Stevens Circle entrance. Most of the cost will be along rebuilding along that retention pond, from that, taking that fence down, building a berm, a new fence. That's the biggest part of the project. This 125 is based upon Steve Bethairs' actual construction estimate. It does not include a contingency. I'm gambling that we're going to get some good bids. That's my hope. Otherwise, when we bid this out, we're going to have to take a look at where our revenues are, because we're going to max this fund out. We get about $65,000 annually off sidewalk fees, and we're going to roll over about $60,000 hopefully by the end of the year. So we're pushing this one to the limit. You can always use capital project funds, capital improvement funds to help make this complete if we need to do that. So.
I don't see on here, so I don't know if it's that or general fund, bridge repair. We're supposed to set aside so much each year.
That's already in the budget.
Is it already there?
I think I remember talking about it.
If we go down to,
This year, right?
if you go down to the bottom on the oversized overweight fund, there's currently a balance around $23,000, and I put parentheses $50,000 being
Oh,
transferred.
there it is, over here.
From capital improvement fund to this fund for future bridge repairs. So the oversized overweight will have that balance after we transfer next year to $72,000. So those
Okay.
revenues coming in off permits that David signed, and they're just not anything coming in until oil and gas kicks back up.
So the
Yeah.
other thing
Okay.
I don't see on here is a splash pad.
I don't have numbers for splash pad.
We do.
You do? Okay. And that would be under probably parks. Okay.
There's a couple companies I've been looking at, trying to get some bids and some information on, and then some of the local communities that have some splash pads.
Sure. I didn't, I'm not opposed to splash pad. The park fund has very little money in it. I even listed on there because of,
There's no program, too.
absolutely, absolutely.
Can you buy water shares with GoCo?
No.
Because you're gonna have to have water.
That I do not know.
And if I may, I'm gonna, and I know there's always add-ons, and I appreciate that. Well, I wanna, do public facilities, which is next. Initially proposed, we talked about some townhouse site plan improvements. Dave and I still need to talk to you about that. We're not even close. But with the senior center addition, there's been discussion on renovating the current community center with the walls, the flooring, scraping off that popcorn ceiling, laying out the vents. It needs a little bit of work. I plugged in a number of $50,000. The second item, plugged facilities, security cameras for the vet memorial, the cemetery shed, some upgrades at town hall. I'd like to put a camera at the sewer lagoon entrance. that's kind of helpful because people will just dump couches sometimes on the side of the road. But looking at the numbers, I mean, that's just a rough estimate of 20, that may be a little high. So the public facilities fund is what we're recommending. If you look down at the bottom, the balance from the public facilities fund is $91,505. I like round numbers, it's a little higher than that. And that is a special revenue fund, so money doesn't come in every year unless we have a new building, new housing permits, new construction permits. So, without impact fees, this budget gets completed but doesn't get refurbished. That 91,000, give or take, came in from Bay Street Rogers Farm Park. Rogers Farm, not Rogers Farm Park, the 55 homes. That's where that money came from. On the water fund, Dave and I talked about a number of items. You're aware that we talked about a 12-inch new line from the water tanks down the vascula to increase the pressure. I put in Steve Bethers, our engineer's cost estimate. We had to reline the ball field well, which is expensive. It's a guessing game when the ones that Riverview and Lincoln will go out, we're assuming they're about the same age, fair enough. And then David and I also talked about that water line replacement at the gas station. David, do you want to touch more on the parks and also on the gas station?
Yeah, and Troy and I actually, in his spreadsheet earlier today, had switched that number on the Shell gas station. I had some erroneous numbers. It's actually going to be closer to 50,000 is what that number would be. So if you want to change that.
I forgot to do that.
I had talked with a company about the potential of relining that water line. The material to reline a water line, to have it food grade and all that kind of thing, without any labor involved at all, is somewhere between $225 and $250 a foot to put that in. That doesn't include any of the excavation costs, that doesn't include any of the labor, that is just the cost of materials. The cost to lay a new water line, open trench, including cutting the road, replacing the asphalt, and that kind of thing, is somewhere between $90 and $125 a foot. So in my mind, it's pretty much a no-brainer that we wouldn't attempt to reline. We would attempt to put in a new water line that would come off that 10-inch water main that's out in Main Street. Basically, if I take that number of $125 a foot, we need to go 400 feet over to the existing hydrant that's there by the Shell station. That's where the $50,000 comes from. So that's why that number is put in there at that rate right now. The wells at the parks, when we had the collapse of the ball field well last year, we had a company come out and look at all three wells at the same time. The company that ended up doing the well drilling and installing the new pump and everything for us at the ball field came out and took a quick peek. It was just a cursory surface glance. We did not pull the pumps. We did not run any inspection. So I don't know for sure what type of condition. However, he looked at them, we looked it up. It's similar time frame that those wells were drilled to the ball field well. It's the exact same material that was in the ball field well. The thing I don't want to have happen, I told Troy that out of these three items that are on the wish list here right now, the wells, between the well and the Shell gas station water line down there, I'm calling it the Shell gas station, it's really the Bella Vista third filing, is what that is down there. I think that we probably could wait till next year to do that water line, if we can't do both, but if I was to flip a coin, I would come down on the side of let's try to get those wells relined at the parks, because I don't want to have to pick a new location, because if those wells collapse, then we have to do the same thing that we did at the ball field. It was an easy move at the ball field because we didn't have nice sodded areas, we didn't have a nice stone or mason structure around it, and all those things. So my promotion is for if we can't swing both of them, then it would be to gamble on the water line continuing to work for at least another year with the temporary work that we've done to it, and then going ahead and do the wells.
As far as that water line is concerned, would, are fire hydrant flows in that area, are they up to snuff?
They're okay right now, yes.
Maybe you talked before, how old is that line?
The water line, we're assuming it was put in at the same time the rest of the lines in Bella Vista were put in, which is between 69 and 71. So, about my age.
So did you find out what happened with that line out there? I know you were doing some research trying to figure out what happened.
I have not been able to find anybody that believes me when we say that it appears to be some roots in a potable water line. But that's what it appears to be.
So the water, the relaying the wells are the, at least in our opinion, the recommendation. I told David in 2019, we're hoping to do the water line for Bella Vista, right? I taught the Shell gas station, because that's what it's been called, just mentioning. In sewer, for the mayor's request, I know you've been waiting for this one, Steve. Again, these funds are trying to build them up, but the board did set aside $250,000 as a reserve for sewer and improvements. I can write another DOLA grant. The estimated cost for the new screen for the sewer lagoon is $400,000, and that reserve fund, call it trust, will be able to match those funds. So I'm willing to write another grant and see what we can get from Department of Local Affairs. I'm not making any other large capital project recommendations to the board at this time for the sewer fund. Parks fund, this year we budgeted for all parking improvements. The numbers just came in a lot higher than we anticipated, so that number just rolled over. We talked for years about community center playground. I just don't think we're there yet. I think we need to get the senior center built and reevaluate that in the next budget. But we did budget, and that's why I put it in here currently in the use tax fund, or it's in the use tax fund for parks, but it's the Rogers Farm Park irrigation and solder on a new basketball court. So that money's already put in the budget. I'm not making any new recommendations for parks because of the parks fund itself wasn't having money in it, so you got to use other funds for those projects. The cemetery, going with the Veterans Memorial, going with security. I talked to Jim Nelson about those, and the $25,000 recommendation, I just pulled out in there. I don't know what the number is yet. He hasn't got that to me yet. But if you go up there, they'll have this old cobblestone pillars. Putting 2 new ones there that'll match. You can pretty well match the existing ones and putting a gate so we can actually lock that cemetery at night, keep vandalism out or help, is my goal, is my recommendation. And I would also potentially use tax funds, or you could use public facilities fund, but I just put use tax fund. I need to find out what that number is before we finally adopt the budget, if you're okay with that. But we're hoping to do that first, and then in years to come, replace that whole fence along there, like with a black wrought iron fence, that would make that cemetery look very, very nice. We're looking at putting a black wrought iron kind of, maybe a push gate right now, but eventually tied into the power of that light pole will be electric gate.
Are we having any vandalism issues on going up there?
Oh, what we've had is some theft. We've had some rock walk off, not large amounts, but we've had some rock ever since the light's been put in. But if you're in the middle of the night and no one's around, even with all the lights, no one's gonna see it. That's why the cameras and that gate, I think, are important. It's too far for anybody to walk to. If you're driving by and you see that lit up memorial, it'll draw your attention. So, yeah. So that's a recommendation for the cemetery. As far as equipment, I asked David earlier in the year about, well, currently the grader is not working as of today.
Oh, really?
The head gasket.
The head gasket.
It finally let go the rest of the way?
Yep.
That's why we have the other one out there?
They fired it up this morning and it said, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, at least the good thing is you guys were watching it closely, so when you saw a major fail, you recognized it. That's good. That So you got some more, is that why that old champion's sitting out there, or whatever that is?
We borrowed it from Gilchrist.
Is that whose that is?
Todd came in this morning before David got here, because he had a meeting, and he said, what am I gonna do? Do I rent one? I said, just call Bob and Gilchrist. That's what we did.
Problem is, that one does not work very well at all, and our operator takes a lot of pride in his work, and he feels like he was tearing things up more than he was doing any good, so he brought it down here and left it up. So, I'm in the process of finding a grader for him to
That
operate.
thing's older than my machine, and my machine's a 65.
Yeah, it's definitely a little machine.
Yeah, that's what happens, you have to pick with the chickens.
So I didn't even put that on here, because I thought, well, we're repair that, I think it'll probably last a while longer, so
Yeah,
let me list it.
we currently have in the streets fund, we were talking about how we pay for the repairs or those kinds of things, how we pay for the equipment. We currently have about $6,000 left in the equipment repair fund in the streets fund right now this year, and I anticipate that that should be enough to do the repair.
It's hard to believe unless it ate ahead.
That's what we're hoping that didn't happen.
I agree.
So the two large equipment items, is I'm pushing for a new street sweeper, and that's, I'll just have to be honest with you there. And then the backhoe and the loader. We're not recommending anything but to start thinking about this, putting funds aside.
This is deja vu all over again.
My feeling is, the street sweeper we have is too slow, bulky, and it has mechanical issues. And I just, over the years, I'm not trying to be your former mayor pro tem here, I know Doug would say that. But
Call Doug and bring me.
what caught my eye is when A1 Chipsil was here with those Elgins, and David found some other ones that, I mean, you could literally sweep the streets in one, take a half day and sweep all the streets in town weekly. I mean, not literally, but pretty darn close. And I just think as much money we're putting into our streets, we need to keep them as clean as possible. What we have now is so slow, it takes so much maintenance, we only get it out once a month.
That plays to our attitude of the citizens too.
Yep. So that's something, maybe not tonight, obviously, but used to new, some general prices David looked up for me. The backhoe, David, is 100,000 ballpark.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So those are things that we need to start looking at, how to save back some money like we did with other projects.
Yeah, one of the things that I hadn't even had a chance to tell Troy about is Brighton actually entered into some 7-year lease purchase with a municipality. You call it a lease purchase versus just a car payment like you and I do when we're out there doing. They actually own the machinery when they get done with it. At the end of their 7 years, I think their rate was 1.82 to 2.03 or something like that was their interest rate over the 7 years. But they were actually able to get more equipment for less money through the lease purchase that they ended up going with. I know that John Deere and Caterpillar both have some pretty significant government discounts, and that they will work with us on the lease purchase type thing for the loader, for a backhoe, for those types of things. Now, in full disclosure, I had put basically $33,000, split it between the sewer and the water fund, and some into the streets to start setting aside so that in 2 to 3 years we would be able to pay cash for a new backhoe or whatever the case may be. There, the two schools of thought on that, depending on how you do it. Some people think that for governmental entities, because of the discounts that they give us, doing the lease purchase, especially if there's no early payoff. Hudson did the same thing on buying their new street sweeper, but they opted to go ahead and pay it off early because they had some excess funds in another, in the account, so they went ahead and just took care of that ahead of time versus continuing to, and it's an annual lease payment versus a monthly type thing. And so depending on how you do it, and if we get into a situation where that hoe gives us some trouble that we aren't anticipating right now or something like that, if we're setting those funds aside for the next 3 years to pay cash for it, depending on how we do it, if we took a 3 or a 4 year lease purchase type thing, we'd basically be doing the same thing, but we would be able to get the machinery right up front. Now, they also do some options where it's an operational lease, it's a lot less money, but they basically get the machine back And you can upgrade to a new machine every 3 or 5 or 7 years, depending on how you want to do that. So, but regardless, this is a conversation that Troy and I have had for a year and a half, and we wanted to bring the board into it to start to either set up a savings account for some of these things or start to consider the lease purchase option, depending on what we end up needing to do.
Well, starting this next year, my hope is if we do have some better revenues come in, do like we did with like the streetscape project with the sewer do the stream, start putting money aside, call it trust, and just reserve that money.
Good way to do it.
So,
Well, that way, we at least have different avenues, we have some choices.
well, we always like options, so. That's the majority of the topic. The largest one is, back to the topic of page of streets. And I'll briefly summarize. The first were some estimates from Pat Hill. We did the circle project a couple years back. So the second phase would be from where they left off to right here by Town Hall at Main Street. Actually, it's 85, and then this other one, County 32 reconstruction, is up at Cemetery Hill. Those are his initial estimates. Probably need to update those, but I'm not pursuing those this year. Reynolds Avenue reconstruction, we talked about length. I kind of rounded up Mr. Patheris' total estimate, which doesn't include storm drainage, of $1.75 million. Reed subdivision patching, I asked David to get an estimate from anyone chip seal, because it's, other than Schultz, the last subdivision that hasn't had any significant work. And it, roughly the chip seal is around $90,000, and then there's additional patching funds David asked for in his streets fund. So I just brought around a number 125 to be conservative. A couple of new ones. There's a developer that is going to start mining the old Gilchrist Reservoir into County 38. So we met a few months ago with David Nye, and they are aware that we have a road maintenance agreement with them. And essentially, our share, that which the county transferred to the Town of Platteville, our share is just below 10% of that total cost. Pat Hill, over the years, have made some recommendations. They came back and said, can we just do an overlay, the whole thing, which is a lot better than patching, crack sealing, and chip seal. So they used Martin Marietta and came up with a cost of just under $400,000 to overlay County 38 from the end, which is around County 23, all the way to Highway 60. Our portion for the maintenance agreement would be about $40,000. I'm really promoting that for this next year's budget, because number one, it's a requirement if they decide to pursue it. Rogers Farm South entrance drainage, which is, you've seen the standing water over there, it's been there for a while. Again, David talked to Mr. Batheris and designed, and I couldn't believe the numbers myself, but this is a $97,000 project to alleviate that water to get across and out of there. David, can you explain that a little bit more detail?
It includes some significant patching because of the asphalt, number one, probably wasn't installed entirely properly when it was first put in. It was a fairly, it wasn't a thin layer, but it wasn't as thick of a layer of asphalt, but it was put on native soil. It was not, there was no additional road base put under the original phases of Rogers Farm out there. So it includes some improvement there by putting a significant patch at the entrance there. We would be regrading it a little bit to give it the slope and the drainage. We would also be putting in some curb and gutter around both entrances, the north and the south side. We're hoping, basically before we paved the circle, we looked at trying to figure out a way to get the storm drain that goes under Rogers Farm entrance, the original entrance to Rogers Farm. There's a storm drain on the south and there's a storm drain on the north. There's a culvert between the two and they go nowhere. So when it fills up, it fills up. That's it. There's nothing there. So we had looked at, before we did Circle Boulevard, to see if we could take that from, it actually flows to the north. So we looked to see if we could take it out of the bottom of the north drain and run it across Circle Boulevard before we had repaved Circle Boulevard. We could not make that work with that existing drainage. So now, as we're looking at it, trying to figure out, we could probably, I mean, first of all, Steve put this number in hoping that it's high, because it shocked him as well. he put it in hoping it's high, but there have been several projects here lately that he has done where he had gone with his a little more conservative number, and then because of a small project like this, you don't get a lot of contractors, so there's not a lot of competition on it, so the bids tend to be higher because whoever does the work is like, well, I'm gonna take the time to do it, I'm at least gonna make a decent profit on it. So he's trying to build that number into, so, we're hoping we come back with a bid of 75,000, instead of the 97. But it would be some new curb and gutter. This estimate includes, unfortunately, a cut across the new Strickle Boulevard, Mr. Clark. But it will be a shallower pipe running across there, because what we had shot before wouldn't work because we couldn't get the grade and get it to come out on the ditch on the other side to the east side of Strickle Boulevard out of the existing one. So we would also potentially be looking at a elevated outflow, so if the pipe to nowhere under the existing driveway does fill up, it would have an outflow to go to the new one that would run across Strickle Boulevard. So we are looking at options to not cut the road, to potentially put that storm catch in there and just run it all and see whether we can get it to evaporate, maybe perf, put some holes into the existing catch basins to see if, with the sandy soil, to see if we can get it to perf out, to dissipate that way without having to cut the road. If we don't have to cut the road, Steve said we would be looking at about a $15,000 savings just in not cutting the road, not having to repatch that portion. So those are all things. This is conceptual numbers only. He has not designed any of this. I mean, it's just it's almost a rough napkins kind of plan right now, just to give us a ballpark, because we knew we were having this conversation tonight and he was going to be out of town. So
If we were putting a big old drain pan right in Strickle Boulevard, that'd solve our speeding problem too.
You know what?
That's not bad.
Hey, just like our Goodrich ditch.
That's what it is.
When do you anticipate that might get underway?
Well, that's entirely up to the board. If
Not before winter.
what's that?
Not likely before winter.
No, if these funds are approved, it's January 1, so it would be next spring sometime that we'd be getting it done.
Those pipes that go nowhere, was that part of the Rogers development?
It was.
And nobody was watching, huh?
I wasn't
That
here
was before any of our time, and that's,
I'm sure that there was a legitimate reason for the way they did it. I just can't figure out what that legitimate reason was right now.
It was cheap and quick.
I agree.
So this time, we're not making any recommendations, we need to do some more research for the board. I want the board to be aware of it, because we've been receiving a lot of complaints why the water still stands.
But your higher priority is the 38 overlay.
Because we're gonna be forced into that,
By
contractors, yeah. And then the last one that just came about as of Monday, is Dave and I met with Larry Haas from CDOT. They put that temporary signal in, where can you pass these ones? They never finished the sidewalks, because the kids come across and build this, and they're gonna be staying in mud in the winter time. So,
well, and then the road keeps going to pieces where the 18-wheelers, the apex turn.
so they reached out, so they've actually had this done for several months, I think they were just starting to go.
Take a quick peek at that, I've seen it.
Well, roughly it's about $168,000 improvements, and I just printed off one copy of their proposal, which shows what the improvements are. So the lower right corner, that's where the bank is. Sorry, my right has one there. The lower right corner is the bank, you cross 66 to the north, to a handicap or landing pad, and then the sidewalk will tie into where they stop at the Dollar General. Then you cross again, and then there'll be new curb and gutter and extended sidewalk at the school. And this is what TDOT's proposing. They're also looking at addressing some drainage issues, because we have some ponding there. So this is just a snapshot. It looks like, when Dave and I met with Larry, he simply said the state doesn't have any funds available for this project. It's not budgeted. He was going to, later that afternoon, going to talk to Johnny Olson, the director of Region 4, to see what funds were available. But before we end the meeting, he did hint very strongly that if we partnered, as he indicates, CDOT paid for the light, they paid for the initial study, which they did. They paid about $100,000 for the initial traffic study. The light was temporary light, so it's about half the cost, about $150,000 to $200,000 for a temporary light. He's asking if we partner with this, he would probably raise it up to a very strong possibility, and partner means cash match. So I said, what does that mean? He goes, anything, but maybe about 10%, which would be just over $15,000. So I plug in a number of $15,000, because if we could get a $168,000 intersection improvement done for 15, I would do that every time.
Yeah.
And I do feel that we need to start putting something into this intersection.
And that's not widening out the roads and
No.
or anything, it's just.
It has nothing to do.
Crosswalks and stuff, right?
And
Is this a permanent light they're gonna put in?
No.
Or is it still the temporary lights?
it's temporary. Larry was very clear to us that when those long-term improvements eventually go in with the turn signals, this will all be thrown away.
That's what I was just gonna ask.
So, but knowing that's going to take a number more years, what we do in the meantime?
Right.
I am promoting to the board that we use $15,000 out of the transportation fund, up to 20 potentially, because that fund is pretty solid. Again, it's an impact fee fund, so knowing the revenues are coming in, but I think that's a high priority to finish the safety of those kids over there. Plus, we're having some people in wheelchairs that can't reach in the mud that signal button. So I'm proposing that, as well as the Capital 38 overlay. I'm suggesting re-subdivision, but that's just my suggestion. Out of capital improvement fund, and then some of the patching would come out of the street stuff.
Did you talk to Larry Haas about that corner? You know that, because you were telling me about the gentleman in the wheelchair?
Yep.
Would that clean that up so he could get in and out of
Yes.
there?
Absolutely.
Terrific.
Yep.
Great.
And that's what this is. This is one page of about 8 pages, but it had cross sections on it. So if I give you a snapshot of what they're looking at doing.
If I could jump in, Troy, on the right-hand side of that, you've got the bold crosswalk that's coming, coming north to south or south to north, depending on the same side as the Dollar General and the bank. They actually are looking to pull, right now, we've got a culvert that you can trip over that's right there, where the sidewalk should be, that kind of thing. That all gets pulled out. The new culvert is shown there coming out of the retention pond, coming from the Dollar General parking lot, back over. It's a significant improvement. When I first saw the estimate, I looked at the estimate before I looked at the plan, and I thought, well, this is typical state government, $167,000 for, 25 feet of sidewalk or something like that. Then when I realized what all the improvements were that they're talking about. And unfortunately, this doesn't include any right-of-way acquisitions or anything like that. This is just strictly making better what we've got there now for the kids. Troy did ask them to increase the size of that accessible landing pad because of the number of kids that we have at certain times. She's got a dozen to 15 kids at a time that are on that landing pad, so we did ask for an increase in size on that. So that when they're waiting on that corner, they have a little more secure area for waiting. The moms and strollers that have called us and visited with us about the mud that they're trying to get through, the gentleman in the mobility device that has had issues reaching that those will all be, and they're actually adding a couple, I don't know if you've seen them in some of the bigger towns, they've added these about 4 foot high. They actually take the light signal for you to touch and put it on another pole that's in a separate, those are actually being added. They're not just on the light poles themselves, but they will be added near the corner for somebody to hit and use. So,
These are DOT's drawings?
correct.
And so when this project gets underway, it's there contractor's their job to do. We just pay, a certain percentage.
Partnering. We're partnering. We would write them a check for $15,000.
Right, but it's their baby to get
Theirs
done.
completely.
Yeah, okay.
We have no say-so in it, but he had courtesy to come to us because we requested it.
Right. But it's their standards, drawings and engineering and all that's on them.
They would put out the full specification package, they would put out the bid, all we're doing is agreeing to partner for a certain percentage.
And why they get done.
And Larry was very confident, I feel like he was very confident that we come back to them and say that the town is willing to partner on this. Their year runs from, is it July 1? July 1 through the end of June. So they're, by the time this budget is approved, they're halfway through their 17 budget or 18 budget, I don't know how they refer to it. But Larry was confident that there might even be a project that was budgeted at, $300,000 that came in at $250,000. And, that he might be able to find some of those even in this year's budget after we approve this, that they might be able to get it done towards the end of school, into the summertime type thing. Worst case scenario, he was hoping that Johnny would be able to allocate the funds, and as long as he's got the funds allocated, even going into July 1, he said he would put this out to bid in February. He was looking at a 20-day time frame. He asked if we had any preference. He said that they would put it in the specifications that the contractor could only work 9 to 3, so the kids are already in school, and then they have to be done and wrapped up before the kids are out. Or he might give the contractor the option to work like 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. So we will get some noise complaints. He already warned us and told us up front that we will for about 20 days get the noise complaints while they're doing it. But he said most of the contractors would probably opt to take the nighttime work because they get a longer than that 6-hour window to try and get stuff done. So, that
And
those...
they did it in a week and not 3 weeks.
Yeah, he was saying he thought that if they did the nighttime work, it might only be a 2-week project.
Take it that state DOT is positively, their thinking is positively influenced by the school and the number of children that are crossing here? Or is that's part of their thinking, I suppose?
Troy's been working on it for a long time.
Okay.
Okay, I have to ask. Reynolds. And everybody wants to know what's gonna happen with Reynolds. Do we need to start setting money aside like we do for these other projects? Is there, I know that we have a drainage problem there, and it rains, it's just, could we at least fix that this next year? People wanna know what's happening with Reynolds.
The drainage, I think, as far as you break down the whole project, the drainage was, it's not the highest, one of the highest aspects of the project.
I mean, at the intersection of Division and Reynolds. It's
Oh.
just water everywhere in the barges.
No,
It does sit on Division.
And it sits on Division.
I'm not gonna disagree. Realistically, the drainage should be the first item to address, so I'm gonna have to go back to Steve and look at that specific breakdown and bring it with me.
I don't remember, I wanna say it's in the $500,000 range, just for the drainage portion.
But that number wasn't just for Division, it was to get all the water up to 32 and a half and out of there.
Yeah.
That's the first step. You
That's
can't
the
do
main
it.
reason why division's never been done,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
drainage issue.
And I agree, but I just didn't see that money anywhere in the budget to do unless you take at the bottom the whole reserve fund from the general fund, it's just not gonna happen.
No, it's just, people are asking and it's budget time and
And it's,
we need to, I mean, they're gonna ask me what's happening.
yeah,
Say we have to wait.
so we have to put money aside, and I've looked for grants, but that's not a truck route, I just can't find,
Should we start
A funding
setting
source.
aside some money?
this
This
year, we just
year.
don't have any additional money to set aside.
Okay.
We don't have the influx like we did a few years ago where we set aside for the senior center and different projects.
Yeah.
Because the home gas boom gave us that influx of
Right.
another $500,000, we
You
just
can't
don't have
use,
it.
the energy impact of the street, and
Truck routes,
just truck route.
yeah, because we have to show the connection between the oil and gas field and that street. That's how we get that circle rule of it.
Turn it into a truck route, or...
Down Division, no.
Well, just for temporary.
about
And then when it's
Well,
stopped, then we'll go.
it's
That's
paid for.
right. And then we'll turn it back.
I've heard,
We could route all our heavy-duty trucks through there for a couple of weeks.
No. Like that.
So, how many years are we looking that it's probably gonna take to do rental?
depends on funding.
Yeah, if we can get revenues up, then that's
I
gonna
mean,
change everything.
if I can say we can save $250,000 a year, then I can give you that time frame. I just can't say that right now.
Okay.
I just don't have that.
So it's nowhere in the near future.
Not in the next couple of years unless something substantially changes, because if you look at the other funds at the bottom, there's nothing there that can sustain such a large project.
Well, I didn't know if we could do
Yeah.
a portion.
Do they have any
Storm.
funds for storm drainage projects?
Well, I don't think of what's out there. The CMAQ funds over here, vehicles funds, sometimes they can be applied for storm drainage on high traffic intersections because part of that air quality mitigation. But I'd have to talk to Steve to see how they even qualify.
If is there any just outright grant money?
For this, I haven't seen any grants. I've looked for a lot of different grants out
Okay.
there. I haven't found one yet, but I'm sure there's something we can probably look for. I'll just keep looking.
Okay. I know it's a big project.
I mean, you can, if you go back to the project at 66 in Maine, that is one that, when it's time for funding, if I ever get CDOT to do the 200,000 construction design, that one you can piecemeal because the sidewalk grant's out there to do the sidewalk. The CMAQ grant can help do part of the storm drainage, if not part of the sidewalk. And I'd have to find another revenue source to do the main core work. Reynolds is a whole different monster. I mean, we is so flat right there by First House. I mean, that's an Irene's property. I mean,
Are those culverts plugged up? Is that why the water is just sitting at that end?
The culverts are laid flat. One culvert is laid east going west, and one culvert's laid west going east. The original drainage along Reynolds and the original plan from multiple years ago, after visiting with Steve and probably Steve's 3 firms ago or more, when they had originally looked at that, there were no homes along there. Mr. Blum's home wasn't there, none of the others that are along Reynolds were there. So the design and the plan was totally different. Now that we've got driveways and homes and everything else in there, we've got to basically go back in and throw out what was done and come up with a plan B. So.
Makes you feel any better. Back when I was there years ago, we were still talking about that. That was back in the.
Well, you
That
heard it,
was way
folks.
long ago.
So
No,
we-
I see the water sitting on Division, and
We-
we just did that road a couple of years ago.
We can, and I discussed this with the mayor earlier this week or last week, I don't remember, but we can look at trying to clean that ditch just a little bit more. I know some of those culverts are squished down a little bit, so I don't know if we can repair those or get a flared end put on them or something along those lines. I hate to spend too much money putting an end on the thing because I know it's just gonna get crushed again. Because it's so flat, I have no doubt that there's a significant amount of dirt and debris that has collected in the pipe, and so I'm sure it's not flowing like it was originally designed. So we can do some of those things, Kim, that would alleviate just a little bit, but I'm in no way, shape, or form, if we get a frog choker coming down, that we're gonna be able to really make a significant, we'll still float Mr. Blum's wood chips out of his yard.
I just hate to see it, this
Yeah.
road being popped after.
And a couple of years ago, Dan, this has been on my street over years ago, we talked to Steve Harris about doing a series of, from the community center west tying in to the storm drain at Reed or River, and then from the community center back to Maine, somehow flow that water to the detention pond. It's like a 2-phase approach. Well, detention ponds are no longer legal, so we can't even consider that
Yeah.
option. And one thing we talked about is using part of the parking lot, just as a discussion point, like the volleyball pit, as a detention pond with a pump that will pump it up to 32.5 to get it down to the river. And that was a little bit less expensive than what the Uintal, water, or the engineers presented, but then we didn't want to take the parking lot either. So,
There's property around there too.
yeah,
There's options, but it's still a lot of money no matter what way we go.
it's a lot of money, and no one option just jumps out at us.
Right.
It just doesn't, so.
It's bad enough having to pump sanitary sewage, I really don't wanna pump waste, or, storm drainage if we don't have to. But we may not have any option, we may end up having to do that. City of Greeley does that in a number of locations, and,
Well,
anytime you're adding a mechanical feature to any of this, you're asking for more problems with that, because we get a frog choker in the pump switch, then what?
Yeah.
Well, and we did the recycled asphalt, that was just a temporary fix.
Yeah, it's just purely temporary.
That's gonna fall apart.
So, we'll talk to Steve again. We looked at what Uintal approved, but me personally, looking at that, I think that's the best solution, but cost-wise, I just don't know how we can afford that in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I guarantee when the senior center is built, it's gonna come up like almost daily,
Yes, it is.
Yes.
so.
Okay, I just wanted to know where
So,
we're at.
good question,
There used to be a lake.
don't ignore it.
Yeah.
It was worse.
So to summarize, unless you have any questions for David and I primarily, I put on the very bottom, basically available funds. So in the general fund, in the call trust, we have an account with about a little over $500,000 that's not being used. Your special revenue funds that are earmarked, right, and with an asterisk. Available fund balances after 2018 budget. So I looked at what we already approved for the proposed budget. Those are what available cash funds are left remaining that could be used. I put the proposals in there for transportation, capital improvement, public facilities and use tax, and then for water and sewer, at the bottom to your right, in the water fund, instead of 80, it'd be 130. I believe, Dan, is that what we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then using the 225, it's about 227 actually, closer, for a gold matching grant for that sewer screen. What'll happen is your fund balance in the financials will just keep going down when we use these call funds, okay? This is part of the general budget. The 130K, what we do is we would budget that in the water fund, so we would have a deficit or a negative balance going into 2018, but we're gonna have to use some of those monies, basically reserve monies. So it's gonna show negative in your budget. It's not like we have a special fund full from, it's just for your reserves that you're gonna be using.
What would this projected pull our unrestricted fund balance down to?
Close to $1 million. I'm guessing. I mean, I'm just looking at the numbers right here. Right here you have almost 400,000 right here in water and sewer. So that's in college fest right there. I'd have to look at the financial statement.
Because we're at 2.1 right now, right?
No, not quite.
Close.
But moving that 375,000,
Correct.
just dipped that quite a bit.
So you're projecting that it would take us down to $1 million unrestricted fund balance?
I'm guessing, I have put the numbers for it, but I'm guessing. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, and then before we adopt the budget, we're gonna come back and do one final review. Because I wanted to see Dave update the September financials, I want to see what the October expenditure revenues come in. Because earlier last week, Devin gave me sales tax for September. I was shocked, I was anticipating 40,000, it was 65. So right now is a numbers game, we're watching expenditures and revenues, which will affect all these numbers.
I'll let extra food out of mine.
You're doing your part.
Now, is there anything from the board, I know you recommended water, or talk about a water park, what does that involve?
Splash.
Last time.
So there's some different plants out there that have,
They recirculate water.
and they have a pad where it's not, you can have constant water on it, you go up there, you step on it, the kids will step on it, it turns water on, splashes around a little bit, it turns off, it's on a timer, go back, step on it again, so you're not having to have somebody there. A lot of communities have just, be the, like, the size of this room with some loops and a thing with a bucket that falls on them, you know, after it fills up, so there's different prices in there, with, it just depends on how fancy you want the park, or just something so kids can go in, like, you know.
Is there a price range?
Yeah, what's the price range?
I didn't get a hold of anybody on that, as far as the price range yet, but, you know, I tried to call Milken, they weren't answering the phone, and, Firestone has one as well, but there's a couple places out there that I was looking at that had some of these, splash pads, and,
Milliken's is pretty cool.
so it has pictures and stuff of what you can do, and, I was trying to get a base price, but, I just was busy at work, but here's different, so like, they even have them for apartments, but it's just little mushrooms, little loops and stuff like that that you can have, and it just drops water on, and, you know, kids can get wet and play around and stuff in there, so. It's a cement pad, has a couple of drains and some stuff put in, so, but I've got some.
And it's got a filtration system, so the water recirculates, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Are those GOCO grants, matching grants, or they just
No, they're
100% grant?
They're 100%, and they won't pay for splash pads, schools, parks.
Does GoPro 100%, I only seen it go 80, do they go 100?
Ooh, I don't know that for sure. I know it's not necessarily, it's not 50/50.
No. I'm just saying that the ball field lights was 80/20 with the town at that time.
So-
I didn't know.
I'd have to do a little more research on that. I know up in Walden, that whole complex is paid by GoCo, 100%.
Most recent
How big
GoPro
is that?
grant that I've been part of was actually last year, it was 70/30.
70/30.
It was what
So
they
it
had
must
back
be,
then.
I wonder if there's tiers or something.
Probably depending on the cost.
Yeah.
Do we get the phone fees too?
You pass it around.
Is there consideration of location yet?
Well, we had talked previously, you were
Over
recommending.
by my house.
You were recommending being somewhere central, which Riverview would
Yes.
make sense,
Yes.
or Lincoln.
I didn't know if there was another conversation. I just,
No,
centrally would be the best area.
I agree,
Yeah, I think either Riverview or Lincoln.
yeah, absolutely.
But
My
pretty much-
concern would be the water usage, how much water you
Well, that's the beautiful part about it, it recirculates.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that much.
So it holds a certain
So-
volume, like 100 gallons.
We got
I
water
have,
fund that's
I
not
have
doing
called
anything.
into Milliken as does Troy, and, you know, we need to talk with people who have experience with them.
Okay.
But, I mean, that is the number one thing we hear in the summer.
Yeah.
And if we can't find it, put it in the budget, we need to figure out something for these kids.
Well-
We asked the rec department to put up some water bounce houses every other Friday throughout
Yeah.
summer, or whatever. We need something for the kids.
I'd be curious on a small footprint down at Riverview, what that cost would be, so, because
Well, I
if GoCo can
thought-
pay 70 or 80%, you can maybe get it done for 20, 30,000, I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's, yeah, I'm thinking, yeah.
And that could be a use tax or
Yeah.
whatever, so,
Yep.
okay.
Oh, yes.
I'll add that to the list of parts.
Please.
And just, you give me just a ballpark number?
Yeah, I called one of the places and, they were gonna transfer me to cell phone, but then I was gonna do it, and I had to come up, so I told them I'd call back later, so.
Okay. Are there any other items on the board's mind for capital projects in 22?
We can't afford anymore.
Besides what you've already proposed.
And just to recap, those 3 street proposals, where did our sidewalk, we're gonna do our sidewalk project, community center renovation, and cameras, reline the 2 parks at Roger, Riverview, and Lincoln, write a grant for the sewer screen. We already budgeted funds for Rogers Farm Park, completing that up. And I drew in a proposal for that, those pillars in that gate, not confirm what cost that is before we come on the budget. And I didn't mention, but the new town hall server, that's needed. I mean, it affects it. And that's in the capital improvement fund. So those are my proposals, talking to David also as well. I'm trying to keep it as conservative as possible, trying to prioritize.
Were you thinking of doing the re-subdivision?
I would like to, unless the board wants to apply that money somewhere else.
So that's on here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's on the
Yeah.
streets and the cost.
But it doesn't show it down here. You only have-
What I have is capital improvement fund, Kim, 100,000,
Mhm.
and that's, the 100 is the 125. The other 25 will come out of what David says, like patching the street.
Oh,
Right, right.
Yeah,
that's why.
sorry about that.
It looks
Yeah.
like that. Okay, I was just trying to get the numbers
Reed
straight.
needs it back.
So, and David and I have to sit down and talk about, we repaved all of past the curve, so does that need to be done or not? We need to talk about that. I can just say, we redid the intersection and redid all of it, it was so bad a year or so ago. All the sidewalks after this year, that existing sidewalks will have been touched up and repaired, so I think it's time. Other than Reynolds, so.
Troy, what was the commentary on the Rogers Farm drainage? Were we thinking, were we hoping,
We need to talk to Steve and see if there's some, right now, the capital improvement fund will not hold that because of the senior center. That 90,000, I don't know where else to put that right now. Because it doesn't match the transportation fund, it doesn't match those facilities.
Right.
I mean, those funds are maxed out. We'd have to dip in reserves this year if we did that, unless we can get those numbers knocked down quite a bit. So we'll need to follow up to Steve when he gets back from vacation. I know we're getting complaints all the time on that. I understand that completely. Anything else on that?
I have a question about the sidewalk down at Grand where it turns.
Yes.
Has there been any consideration of putting in a guardrail on the street side of the proposed sidewalk? Or is the pedestrians going to be totally exposed to that curve?
Yeah, and that's, the sidewalk, I believe, is going to be, it's not going to be just on the curb of Sturkle. I believe, David, when...
It's gonna be set back. We actually will, the existing fence around the retention pond, we're not gonna lose any drainage in the retention pond, but we are gonna, add a little fill back there, put in a retaining wall. We'll have to have a rail on that wall because it's over 28 inches or whatever it is that code is, that we have to have a rail. But then I believe, and I have not reviewed the plans again lately, Larry, but I believe there was a guardrail that was included behind the curb prior to, it's going to be an offset sidewalk, but a guardrail between the curb that's at the edge of Sturkle and where the sidewalk's going to be.
I just happened to wake up in the middle of the night a while ago and thinking about the racetrack that's on the curb there and
Yes.
and exposed pedestrians. Just
Another thing Dave and I talked about, we probably just incorporate in just the general budget is, at the sewer lagoon, using that curve 32 and Sturkle, even though people slow down around there, we may want to put some kind of guardrail around that lift station, just to protect that lift station. It's never happened yet, but the truck did hit the gate a couple years back. There was a T-bone accident there. That's something we can probably incorporate just in general.
Well, and I've had complaints about the guardrail at the very end, that go around the oil battery right there. And that's one of those things that when I drive past it, I think of it, and by the time I get to the office, I've received another phone call, or I've thought of something else, or I've passed another project that I remembered to write down. And so that's one of those things. The company that did the work for us out on the bridge, TLM Constructors, they do that kind of work all the time. So we could get a cost from them to come in and do that, you know, to make those repairs. And that probably would come out of just the standard street fund where we've got some, you know, some basic repair funds that we have set aside. So that's one of those things I'm looking at for next year.
that I haven't necessarily articulated, but the board will see it unless it's under Troy's limit, and we can just do it and justify it.
Yeah, protect our lift station.
Well, when Anadarko took out that, when we met with Anadarko, took out that old tank battery, plugged that well at Rogers Farm, I looked to the north, I said, can you take out and fix that? He said, it's not mine, it's yours.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. So we'll provide some updates, we'll plug in some numbers to the budget, we'll look at some, estimated numbers as far as the cemetery gate and what we just talked about. Next month, we're gonna meet to talk about the employee handbook, elected officials handbook, so forth, and I'm gonna throw on there, our purchasing policy, and then we're gonna talk, Larry, I wanna recommend doing the investment policy conversation at that, so those 4 items. Excellent. On November. November 7th meeting is getting pretty busy. My recommendation is to cancel the meeting of Thanksgiving, so I would like to recommend doing back-to-back meetings on the 7th and the 14th, and then take Thanksgiving off and take a break.
I don't think I'm gonna be back, I'll be gone the 19th.
I know. And I just, we're looking at the numbers, I know how else to do it. The last thing on the agenda tonight is employee wages and benefits. I don't have a proposal for wages at this time. I do want to talk about the benefits, specifically longevity benefits. And I'm going to ask David here in a minute to kind of explain how that affects the budget, because it's not actually a cash transaction per se. But I've been requested, or I've had several employees request on longevity, and it doesn't involve their limits, not 3, 5, 7, 10-year limit. It's not what I'm talking about. It's about the use of those benefits. For the last 3 years we've had this, for the employees, it's only applied toward town benefits, town provided benefits, health insurance, retirement. And we have occasional employees that would like to use it for something like education, or something that is a benefit to them. So education is number one thing. It came up years ago, but we weren't quite there yet. My proposal is, as long as the employee is still on our health plan, that was the purpose of it, to attract the employees back. So if you have a young start employee who the town pays his insurance, his or her insurance, but they don't need the family plan, but they want to use their benefits, if they qualify, to bear their education. When I worked in Elmwood, Kansas, we had a program similar to that, and we just had to, it was a reimbursement. They had to do an agreement to stay X period of time, and they had to provide basically a passing grade in order to get that money at the end of the semester. I would be supportive of that, because that would be another benefit for the employees, and I'm all for education. But they have to have health insurance. But that's really the main thing of longevity. And I can bring that up next month when we meet for our next study session about the details. I know, Mayor, you and I talked about that, but the main thing is,
that wouldn't incur a cost then to the town, because we wouldn't have anybody dropping off the insurance rolls,
that's
correct?
the key, is, and I'm gonna run this by Ken to make sure I'm not discriminating against anybody in any way, shape, or form, but, and, I did ask David to kind of explain how the longevity, because I know the numbers are always off, it seems like, so I'm gonna ask David to kind of explain that in a minute.
So the longevity benefits, what's unique about those is that they don't really run through the payroll system, right? Because you're paying somebody, you're paying for their health insurance, right? So the money actually goes out through a check into the health insurance thing, so it really gets hard to track. And then as far as, especially this year, it'll change a little bit next year, but you had employees that were put to like 5 different departments, especially public works, where they hit. We're going to knock that down to about 3 this year, but that's still 3 allocations. So that's all done manually, so that's what makes it hard to figure out, and they're changing as they go, and as employees change and stuff like that, so it's all off of spreadsheets. And that's what's making them fluctuate and hard to track. I think I've got them caught up as of right now. I'm working on ways to do that better, but that's been the struggle with those benefits, is because it's really a non-cash benefit, a health insurance benefit that you're getting. So a lot of times those are really just offsetting the health insurance cost that you would see on the financial statement. So if you see something called, I think it's called health and dental insurance, that's the offset to the longevity benefits as well. So that's how those are worked, that's how those longevity benefits are going through the financial statement.
If that was diverted to like educational, that would then become taxable, correct?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
No, because if you think about some places, trick is always, when we're talking about taxable, trick is always qualified plan. So you have to make sure you set up a qualified plan. Qualified plan just basically means that somebody's accountable for their actions, which means that they have to provide education reimbursement. So if they went and took a class at UNC, they would have to submit that for reimbursement, rather than just, here's $500 for education. And then it cannot be discriminatory as well. That's the other thing, it has to be open to really everybody have those. And as long as those are met and you get it set up right, it's probably not a taxable thing. But that would also change how the longevity benefits are running through the financial statements as well. But that really, as far as that goes, that should be the, not even a concern as far as whether making that decision, because that's something that can all be handled. It just changes how you get things.
What would be the cap of education benefit?
It would be whatever the employee qualifies for, whether it be $300 or $500 or,
It'll be the same as the longevity bonus.
yeah, it'd be 150, 357.
I think it's 2, 3, 5, 7.
Yeah.
Because like one class would cost about $1,000 for a class. They would be able to use that toward.
No, if it was, you know, I'll pick on Carl, for example, because he's been sitting here quietly all night long. You know, he and I and Todd currently and several others received the maximum been over 10 years, so he has $600 a month. He don't apply that toward his healthcare. He applied it toward monthly toward the reimbursement for his education, which would pay for the semester at age.
So we allow them to accrue it for so many months, and then,
I have to work with David and see if we put that money aside or something, if they want to do that.
Seems fair.
But that was the main change there. The other topic I wanted to bring up, and Carl and I talked earlier today, there's some talk off and on about the police department and staffing. I didn't bring it up in budget because I feel it's more of an employee issue. You know where the budget stands. The expenditures and revenues are about the same. The school, currently, we're filling 2 positions, right?
Yes.
And you met Kathy tonight, so she's the third one, but she's in training. We have 1 actual vacancy in the line officers and 1 in SRO. What's happening is Carl's hiring for 2 line officers because Sierra has agreed to transfer to become our second SRO at the elementary school, which she's excited about. This is a good example of when you have a limited agency, and that's why Carl hasn't worked all week. He's on rotation. He worked last week and he's going to work this week. We just annexed 6 more miles of highway. We kind of had part of this conversation. I would like to before the budget's finalized, have a conversation starting tonight about, is it time to look at considering adding on an officer that could help fill the gaps, but maybe have a dedicated traffic officer to justify it. I don't know if that would work for Carl, but when Mike was here a few years ago, we actually had 8 line officers, 1 left. We never filled the position. We went back to 7, and we maintained. So that 8th one was because we picked the GoCrest contract. So right now, our line officers, we're maintaining the same number as we did when I first became chief back in 2004. So I want everybody to I just would ask the board to consider the possibility, if not this next year, the year after that, to start getting that ball rolling. I think it's time.
And that was 8 officers without the SROs.
Without the SROs.
And now we have 7, and of those 7, 2 of those are SROs.
No, 9 total with the SROs. We're talking about just line officers, sorry for it. We have 9 total officers, but 2 are dedicated 10 months of the year to the school district. Right.
And we're adding 6 miles of highway.
6 miles of highway, another 150, give or take, people at Rogers Farm. No future plant growth as of this time. But we're all serving Gilchrist, so I want to throw that out. I'm not asking for anything tonight, but I wanted to keep this conversation going as we go into this next year. I don't know
if we, with the officers that we've lost and whatnot, is there any way to give us an an idea of what we're putting out in overtime? Because of the fact that we end up losing officers, we're short, we're paying overtime. I mean, that number is very important.
Oh,
You know, because if we take a look at that number and realize if we had another officer, when we did have somebody leave, it's gonna maybe affect the fact that we won't have that number.
Well, now would be a good time to analyze that, Mike.
I think that'd be a good number to have.
Dave's gonna make another on that in time we get together, next session, next month, which really is a budget one, but we need to talk about this again, get some numbers for you. And Carl, I know we talked about it, I know we've always agreed, we talked to the mayor about maintaining, but this happens to be a time where one's in training and two are vacant, technically one, but the school keeps asking when we're gonna fill their position, the length of time to replace that officer. It's not just increasing officers, what I'm thinking about, it's maintaining a certain staffing level. And my idea is when we have two officers at any given time, for a long period of time, where's their staffing level at for long duration? And that's kind of where I'm going with this, because that's the reality that we're dealing with. Do you want to add anything on that?
Maybe, I think you're exactly right. We need to start worrying about retaining the officers that we have, and how do we retain these officers? And I don't want to be hard on us, because we offer a lot of stuff in this agency that a lot of other smaller agencies not. For example, many agencies, they won't offer overtime. They have to flex it out. So if they work over, they get a leave early a couple hours. So just that we offer overtime here is awesome. The long weekends that we offer our officers on, they're super long, and they're something that not a whole lot of other smaller agencies can offer. So we can offer a lot of stuff, but if there's other incentives that we can maybe work around to retain the officers that we have, I'm really hoping in 2008 we don't hire a single officer. That's my hope. After we get everyone on board, the SRO is hired. Hopefully we won't lose anybody. Now, the incentives that we have, that's open for discussion, whether it be small things, large things. If someone is at work every day for 6 months, we give them a shift, they go home with pay, for example, or if we wanted to work on retention and you guys authorize just on their work week, have a take-home card, not all the time, just on their work week. So there's a lot of ideas out there, and I'm open for discussion, or I have some ideas in the works of hopefully retaining the good officers that we.
Can you put a list of that together so we have an idea? You know, what?
Absolutely.
Because you're the, you know what their needs are, and if you put a list together, then we can talk about it here.
Yeah.
You know, idea. And one thing, I did a career fair at UNC last weekend, and every police force, every agency is looking for, the career fair at UNC, they're looking, Lakewood, El Paso County, Aurora, Police, and the sheriff here just got approved to hire on 30 new deputies. The state patrol looking for 50 new officers. So the whole state of Colorado is hurting for officers and law enforcement. So, but, you know, I think we all agree that we need to do what we can to try to retain, instead of losing somebody for another $9,000 or whatever it is to go to another city, so.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Every agency, even here in Weld County, and, if an officer wants to work for a smaller agency, they won't say a smaller agency, but it has to be less than 3,000. If they say a smaller agency here, Milliken, Johnstown, we're all considered small agencies in Weld County, and so it's hard. It's hard whenever everybody's hiring and the competition's out there, and unfortunately, we can only offer so much in the small town. We can offer what these other agencies are offering. That's just the reality.
Is it just pay that attracting them away, or is there other incentives that keep them?
With the officers that we lost this last month and the month before that, they were looking for another job back when my group was here. This isn't for any other reason, and it was all money. It was all money. So you always have the officers that want to leave, and that's just the reality of it. If you can get a couple of years off of a new officer, I think that's about the norm. But as long as you have the ones that want to work here, and it's making a core. I know we've said that before. So and we're almost there. But money of it, some of it, and health insurance is another one. Just, I mean, it depends where one's at in their walk of life, and young officers that aren't, or they're alone, not married, don't have kids, they may, I mean, they get free health care here, that's awesome, but then for those of us that are married that have kids, and that allowance really helps too. That's what, that $600 a month is, that's for my wife and her health care, and that pays it all, but there's, excuse me, I know one thing, it doesn't take much in a small town, to let them have their self-worth and for them to want to stay here, and that's to maintain a high morale, and it's small things. So we're not way off base, we're not way off with our pay, we're not way off with what we have to offer and the incentives, but if there could be a little more to help with the retention, then that would be awesome. But I will absolutely make a list of incentives and options tonight.
And with your list, Carl, would you mind, so I know the officer come up with, just sitting down with them and just saying, what are the things that matter and things that don't?
Sure.
Because I know we talked about that before.
Happiness is huge. Sometimes, I mean, for me personally, my happiness of where I am is worth more than what I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
So those are some things that we need to consider as a board, you know?
And it's not, I mean, the police department's the most obvious because it takes so long, it's so costly, but
Well,
it's something town-wide where we're not.
and that's the other thing that I would like all of us as a board to keep in mind, is how much does it cost to replace these employees? I have some numbers here, and between admin and public works, we're looking at $10,000 to $12,000 to replace an employee. One leaves, and we have to get another one. Cost for police to replace is $15,000 to $18,000. We lose 4 of those in 1 year, our budget's shot. You know, so it's something we need to keep in mind, definitely.
And we also need to keep in mind what the town people want too, and they voted this last time because they planned on having too many officers.
So I'm not gonna bring in the votes and that kind of stuff.
I don't think you want to go down that road.
We are all here because we're trying to better this town. Your ideas of bettering the town are different than mine, but that doesn't make yours less valid or more valid than mine. And so I completely respect that, Hope, I really do. But we need to look at the entire picture and decide as a group how we're going to help this matter.
And I think Carl kind of hit in the head where if he can establish, for lack of a term in law enforcement, we use core. Because even the years I was involved, you always have 1 or 2 that just rotate. Every year, every 2 years, someone rotate, but you had your core. And honestly, I believe that's the best you can do in a small community, because you can't retain everybody. But
And small communities are stepping stones to something better. We all know that. That's the way it is in these small towns. They're stepping stones to something better.
well, and Carl hit on the head where you look at incentives, whether it be advancement, training, take-home car, longevity benefit program.
Absolutely. To create happiness within our employees doesn't necessarily have to cost us a lot of money. We just need to be creative and willing to listen to our employees. Troy comes to us, he asks us for tools to do his job, whether it be a sewer line or money or incentives for employees, and that's our responsibility. And I think it's responsible of us to hear what these professionals have to ask for, have to say.
I do want to be clear that I'm not asking the board for another officer at this time, neither is Carl. But we want to keep the conversation going, because it has to be discussed. If this continues, number 1, but number 2, if we do grow, and this next year, we'll see what kind of impact those additional 6 miles have on our police department. We get complaints that there's semis in car accidents like there was last Saturday out here at 21 and 66, and Carl's out there for 3 hours and can't respond to the car, because he's the only one on. Those are things we're going to have to track and look at to gauge to see what the impacts are.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to say here. I'm not pushing for anything other than that. For this year's budget, we would have to go over and get the reserves in order to do that. I know that for a fact. One other thing before I lose topic on benefits is, Carl has approached me about what Milliken does with, they call it county health insurance. I kept thinking it was with Will County. It's actually called, Mary found it, it's called the county plan. And all counties in Will County actually can be part of this, kind of what we're already on now, public sector health group. But an officer that Carl does in Milliken has a family plan just like he does, and he pays maybe a fifth of what Carl does here.
For the same insurance.
That's what I'm trying to find out. I assigned that to Irene, and she ran with it, and she should have a quote back, I think, next week, did she say to you? She told me yesterday she thought it was next week.
All employees or PD?
All employees. It's called the county plan, but the municipalities can't apply and be part of this plan. It's a pool, just like service.
That's fantastic.
So we're looking at,
Huge.
that would lower the budget, number one. Well, that'd be number two, that would lower the budget for the employees who's paying a family plan, for number two, the jail budget. But that could be an incentive that could get us over the hump to attract, not to say I'm inappropriate, but to attract the more experienced officers that are afraid to come here. And we've had employees or candidates deny us. We had a finance director years ago say, I can't come work for you because I can't afford your insurance. You know, we've had those opportunities. So, we're working on that as well. I'm hoping to have something sooner than later, but, okay.
It's a different insurance, but the coverages would be similar.
Yeah.
And the deductible?
I think it's Aetna,
Is it Edna?
I think so.
I was gonna say, in the 9 years I've been here, I think we've had 4 different companies even under the same plan, it's just a different company every 2 to 3 years anyway, so.
Yeah.
Well, years ago, we used to have an insurance broker, and I think my first 3 years, we went to a different insurance carrier because it costs every year. And that really messes up employees because their prescriptions and their doctors. And I don't want to do that to these guys.
Everything's in a state of flux all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
So,
When you're done, I got just a little bit too.
that's pretty much it for me, Steve.
Okay. I was going through, this is the sample ballot, the Tabor notice that goes out. And this is kind of, there's some stuff in here that I think is instructional for us. Here's Lock Bowie. They want the taxpayers to approve a bond, $4,200,000 to build roads, okay, roads. The repayment cost is double. By the time it's paid off, the roads will be shot. I really question some of this stuff as to how legitimate some of these boards are going at some of these projects, rather than us who we phase things in and we save things up. And have y'all been watching, did y'all watch the last election where Firestone wanted to build a police station and it was resoundingly defeated? It's back again. And I get the impression they're not taking no for an answer. This is instructional stuff for us, because we're gonna have to deal with issues like this in the future and how we're gonna deal with them. Instead of saving or being responsible with the rest of your money and throwing money at this thing and that thing until you have to borrow money, some of this stuff is instructional, and I think it just bears noting.
And Greeley's doing that too, they got a vote, out there for, even their .65 sales tax to pay for that $20 million worth of roads. And if they doesn't get approved, they got to pay that back to the system.
Those overrides, yeah, those tax overrides are, yeah. It's just, the thing is, it is so easy to get yourself $8 million in debt in a town that's not that much bigger than us, and the payoff takes so long, and the benefit's gone long after, and you still owe the money. It's like buying a new car and have it wear out in the second year. You know, this stuff is something for us to think about.
We haven't talked about doing bonds, have we?
No, but I'm just saying, this is just, I think this is educational to see what other towns do, and it gives us some idea of going forward, you know, putting yourself in tons of debt for something that has such a short life expectancy, and going against the wishes of your voters. I don't think it's always wise.
Well, that's what they
That's all I have.
Not always wise,
So, and maybe that's something that I know we're talking about a small town, but maybe that's what we need to do for rentals, is put a bond out to pay for it. People start complaining that they want that fixed, and we just don't have the budget to do it, then that's maybe something we can go out to the voters and say, okay, you want Reynolds fixed, then you gotta do this to pay for it.
The only way I think I would be in favor of that special taxing district, if that's even possible.
Well, going back to that in the early nineties when Steve McPherson designed it, that and Salisbury were both special taxing districts in the both of them.
And they were, and I would expect they would. I would expect they would.
Which one is the one that passed? There was,
That was the 1% capital improvement.
right, in front of, right there by the firehouse. Just to the north of the firehouse, that road.
Oh. Washington? Here?
Lincoln, okay. So they did that there too, and each of those properties had to pay that certain amount of money. That one was approved, and Reynolds was not approved at the same time. Is that,
Yes.
at that time?
That was the same time.
Okay, yeah.
And showed up at that meeting and protested because I was going to be one of them.
And that's people myself.
Got a lot going on here.
It is, you know, if we're compelled to do something by law, I can understand it. But I just feel like when you build something and the payments go on long after, and these people are paying twice as much for something that they're getting, I just really have a hard time. I really question the wisdom of the governing body. I think that's probably what I'm trying to say. The governing body doesn't always have the best interest of the town in mind. That's all I have. Thank you very much. That's my soapbox.
Well, there's a number of items this time I'm going to carry forward that need to be discussed. Right now, the attendance schedule is November 7th and the 14th. To add one last comment for you, is the last several years, we've been quote-unquote debt-free, and no bonds, and so on and so forth. But what I'm analyzing is, without having small 20 to 30,000 revenue increases in totality, will not sustain our expenditures, because those expenditures, whether it be operations, insurance, things that are way out of our control, we're gonna be in trouble. We can't find, not cutting budgets, but finding revenue sources to bring it in. And property tax is great, but I'm so glad a couple years back when we had the big oil and gas influx, we didn't spend that money, we split it back. Because that's what's helping us right now. But finding other revenue sources, because if this goes on 2 or 3 or 4 years and you don't give raises and you don't improve benefits, I'm gonna be working here by myself.
So where do we find these revenue sources?
I'm throwing this out here as a brainstorm.
He's planting a seed.
Thinking outside the box. I've had talked with Mary's, like, I mean, do we start our own grocery store with the auto parts from the back where it's government ran, where we can, I mean, I don't know, to where we can actually bring in $50,000. I mean, I don't know. Different ideas. So, I just threw that out there as a bad example, but just finding if it's increasing sales tax again, are we ready for that? Is it increasing our use tax? Are we ready for that? Something has to give. So, but our expenses will never go down. They will always go up.
Yep.
Our insurance, health insurance this year went up 4.9%. Dave's gonna build on the budget. Service insurance went up, you know that. Fuel, okay. Just continue.
Everything in the CPI market basket went up.
So, but that's where I wanted to leave tonight, just for the future, we talk about. I'm so optimistic right today, thank you.
Correct. When are we voting on the budget?
The first meeting in December.
Okay, so I won't miss that.
No, nobody misses that meeting, I make sure of that.
Okay.
You're not allowed to go anywhere, just like telling you.
I told you before. We
Well-
can't have a study session again in October, so I don't miss one.
And you're gonna be gone when, the
The 9th through the 16th.
9th to the 16th? Okay.
What if can we do another study session on the 8th? Is that cutting it too close to your meeting? I started out there.
I'd have
You
to
guys
check
do
with
like
my
the whole board.
We do back-to-back nights, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Let me see when we're leaving.
Okay. Yeah, let me know.
I'll find out when the plane.
Huh?
I got nothing. I got nothing. No, I'm not allowed.
Oh.
Mary said we didn't meet on Halloween night.
One last trip.
They could come in costume.
Good idea.
I don't think my children would be very happy with
I
it.
know.
Okay, Candy, let me know, and then I'll
Yes,
get
I'll
the
let you
board about maybe the 7th and 8th of November.
I'm going down tomorrow, so I'll let you know when I get back.
Okay. I will send everybody a paper copy based upon tonight's conversation.
Thank you. November 7th. Are you going tomorrow night? Are you going to the county? And I'll make sure. We do your kids, right?
You know what I mean?
Yes, and we have to replace every.
Yeah.
We have three going, do you? Adrian?
I think it's,
I think it is you.
Yeah.
recreational?
Yeah. Take the
social 6:30 to start.
Then I'm gonna
have-
This is,
No.
No, and I'll bring the meter.
This
Dinner
part-time.
Dinner's
Be a good time.
I just got this alert today.
We got all kinds of.
Steakhouse, Greeley,
They
used to have them
there.
there.
Well, I'm sure you are.
No other rubber chicken round level.
Now it's just rubber chicken. We had, they just had a steak.
I can call our contact down there.
Bar there, everything.
I'll just throw that out there. I researched Grant.
That was overlooked.
Sorry, one more night.
At that event center.
I'm always open-minded.
Yeah, the county building.
That's why I was
Yeah,
thinking
Mom,
of these.
I'll see what I can do.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Broke my toothpick several miles, I'll get that mine.
When I saw you were talking about wages and benefits, already, man.
Can't make a bottle, but.
You sound disappointed.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Good knowledge.
What's that?